Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into Angela Duckworth's fantastic book, Grit. We're going to break down what really drives success, and here's a hint. It's probably not what you've been told.
All right, so let's jump right in by tackling a huge bias pretty much all of us have, our obsession with natural talent. We love the story of the effortless genius, the prodigy who was just born brilliant, but Duckworth argues that this focus on talent is actually a huge distraction from what really matters.
And she points to some really fascinating research that shows this isn't just a feeling we have, it's a real hidden prejudice. We might say we value hard work, but deep down, our brains have this unconscious preference for people we think are naturals over the people we see as strivers. And this isn't some abstract academic idea, right? This bias shows up in really surprising and important ways. It affects who gets hired, who gets investment money, and who we just assume is going to be a star, even when it completely flies in the face of what we claim to believe. I mean, check this out. It plays out in the real world in some pretty staggering ways. In one study, investors looked at two different entrepreneurs. For the hardworking striver to be seen as just as good as the natural, they needed, get this, 4 more years of experience and $40,000 more in capital, just to be seen as equal. That's the naturalness bias right there in black and white.
This whole idea is actually super personal for Duckworth. Growing up, her own father would tell her over and over, you're no genius. So imagine the irony when she later grows up to win a MacArthur Fellowship, which everyone calls the Genius Grant. It really forced her to ask, if it's not some kind of innate genius that leads to incredible achievement, then what is it?
Well, to answer that, we're going to a place where this very question is put to the ultimate test, the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. We're talking about one of the most selective and demanding places on the planet. Now, you have to understand every single person who gets into West Point is already the best of the best. They're star students, captains of their sports teams, community leaders, the whole package. And yet, 1 in 5 of these unbelievably qualified people will drop out. Many of them don't even make it past the first summer, a brutal 7-week orientation they call Beast Barracks. So for years, West Point has been trying to crack this code. Who's going to make it and who's going to quit? They relied on this thing called the whole candidate score. It's this massive metric that measures everything you could possibly think of. Test scores, class rank, physical fitness, leadership. It was their best shot at figuring out who had the right stuff. But the results were just wild. That whole candidate score, the one that measured all that incoming talent, it was totally useless at predicting who would make it through Beast Barracks. There was literally no difference in the scores between the cadets who stayed and the cadets who left. But Duckworth's new measurement, the grit scale, well, it turned out to be an incredibly reliable predictor of who would stick around. So, here's the crucial point. If even in a place like West Point, which is packed to the gills with talent, talent isn't the thing that makes the difference, then what is the actual formula for achievement? This is where Duckworth gives us her big idea. Her theory is so elegant, and it's broken down into 2 simple equations. Okay, part 1. Your talent, how quickly you can learn something, multiplied by the effort you put in, equals your skill. So it's effort that takes your raw potential and turns it into an actual skill. But, and this is the kicker, it doesn't stop there. Effort shows up a second time. You then take the skill that you've built, and you multiply it by effort again. And that's what equals achievement. Effort is what makes your skill productive out in the real world. And this is exactly why she says that effort counts twice. It's the magic multiplier that first turns talent into skill and then turns that skill into real results. It's the engine that powers the whole process. Okay, so this all sounds great, but it brings up a really big question, right? If putting in all the sustained effort is so important, how do gritty people actually do it over the long haul? What keeps them from just giving up? Well, Duckworth's research found that paragons of grit tend to have 4 psychological assets in common. First up is interest. You just have to be genuinely fascinated by what you do. Next is practice. And this isn't just mindlessly repeating things. It's the daily discipline of deliberately trying to improve. Third is purpose. This one is huge. It's the feeling that your work matters and that it contributes to something bigger than yourself. And finally, holding it all together is hope. This is that resilient, tough-minded belief that you can overcome setbacks and make your own future better.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It's not just about trying to figure out if you're a gritty person or not. The most powerful and optimistic message in this whole book is that grit is not a fixed trait. It's not something you either have or you don't. That's right, you can learn to be grittier. Think about it like this. Humanity's collective IQ scores have actually been rising for generations, not because our genes changed, but because our environments got more enriching. Duckworth argues the exact same thing is true for grit. Your passion and your perseverance can absolutely be cultivated by your mindset, your experiences, and the people you surround yourself with. So we want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. We spend so much of our lives asking, am I talented enough for this? But what if that's the wrong question? What if a much better question is, what is my ultimate concern? What is that one top-level goal that is so interesting and so important to you that it organizes everything else you do? Because according to Duckworth, finding the answer to that question, well, that's the real starting point of grit.